for Sebastian. Thanks for reading, AJ. Hey guys, it's great to see you again for another week. My name's Josh. I hit Hamish in the face with a burrito earlier. It's great to have you. I'm still sorry about that, mate. I'm here because I love Jesus, and what we want to do with these Big Fridays is to give you a clearer picture of who Jesus is. Because if Jesus really is who he says he is, then he can give you life and he can help you know that you are loved. Because everyone wants to feel loved, right? I don't think I'm out of line in suggesting that. Everyone wants to feel loved. Everyone wants to know there's someone out there caring for them. Everyone wants to know that there are people that have got your back. We want to belong. We want to know that people at the very least like us, but we want to be loved. Sadly, sometimes in the world that we live in, we feel a bit on the outer. Or we feel that in our relationships that maybe people are a bit ruder to us than they might have liked. We might feel a bit excluded at times. We might feel completely lonely or alone. And I want to grieve with you. If that's you, if you are currently here feeling deeply unloved, I'm so sorry. Jesus has so much to give you. And I hope you'll have a listen to what he has to say tonight. I wonder what it is that is inside of us that makes us kind of pursue this feeling of being loved, this desire to be loved and liked and accepted and to belong. I wonder what it is that is inside of us. Because for me at least, as I'm struck with this desire to feel accepted and to want to belong, I start looking at people around me. I start looking at people I walk past. I start looking at people that I'm really close with, and I ask questions like this. I say, what value will they add to my life? I wonder if you're the same. I wonder if in the relationships that are around you, maybe with your parents, maybe with your friends, maybe with the person that you're trying to rizz up who you tactically sat next to tonight. I wonder if as you do this, name and shame, there's some people around. Let's bring it back together. Thanks, guys. I appreciate a little crowd engagement, but I reckon if I just speak and you just listen, we're probably sorted. I wonder if there's something in you that's kind of like me, where you look at people and you don't think, what can I give them? How can I show them love? You actually look at people as people that are just placed there to kind of fulfill you and to make you feel a little more loved and welcomed. I wonder if you treat people just as people that can give you value add in your life. And like I said last week, sometimes when we look to the things that are in this world to fulfill us and to satisfy us, those things, if they're not Jesus, are going to let us down. If we spend our whole life longing with nothing more in the world to be accepted, then the moment that you get a little bit of rejection or the moment you feel a little bit of exclusion, you're going to be shattered. It is so crucial, it is so important that we don't make needing to belong the most important thing in our lives. Because when it goes wrong, we'll be brokenhearted. There was a survey done a couple of years ago by Relationships Australia that found some of the following data. It said 40% of people under the age of 19, that's most of you guys, sadly not me, most of you guys often feel isolated, and then an extra 70%, an extra 30%, 30 plus 40, 70, maths, doing good, an extra 30%, so 70% of people said that they feel lonely at least some of the time. If we are longing for acceptance, if we are longing to belong, then it's only going to lead us to being brokenhearted, to feeling lonely, and for finding life a little bit harder. For some of you, I know there were some noises earlier, we don't need to do the noises now. It might take the form of really longing for a particular type of relationship, like longing to have that boyfriend or that girlfriend. Story time with Josh. When I was 15, I dated a girl for 3 months because I knew that she liked me. I didn't really like her. No, don't say Riz. She was all right. She was all right. The thing is, though, I need you with me, please. I'm the bad guy. I need to explain myself. I had this deep longing, this feeling of what value will you add to my life, and this person was someone that I thought I could almost kind of feel better by being around because I knew that she liked me. So I was like, okay, let's hang out. This will be great. That's a terrible way to treat anyone. If you're doing that now, terrible idea. Break up immediately. My own selfish attitude became so abundantly clear during the course of this relationship. I think I realized just how terrible I was making feeling acceptance and feeling liked, how I was making that kind of the thing that I was living for. I am mean. I know, and I fully recognize that. I am a bad person. I'm going to explain a bit more throughout the talk, a bit about that. I'll keep talking though. I wonder if you do the same. Like I am a mean person. I am a sinful, broken person. But the reality of what the Bible has to say, if Jesus is legit, then every single one of you are the same. Every single one of you put yourself before others. Every single one of us look around and ask the question, what value do you add to my life? It might be subtle. We might not even want to admit it to ourselves, but the reality is that there's something in us that is broken and something in us that needs hope that is beyond what any person or group of people can do. We desire relationships, but it's not working out for us. We misplace that desire. We have that desire to be loved and nurtured. And if you feel that you don't, I'm really sorry, and I'd love to chat with you later. But we all want to be accepted and we want to belong. And the thing is, what the Bible has to say is that relationships are actually really good. The first couple of pages in the Bible, God created the world, He created it good, and He placed man in the garden. And the only thing that was not good in the whole of God's creation was the fact that the humanity weren't able to relate to one another. God created relationships, and He created relationships as a really good thing. We want some of these things. We want to pursue relationships because we were built to pursue relationships. And these things might give us some really exciting times now, but if we are making a worldly thing the ultimate thing, it's not going to satisfy you. In 60 years, if you are still chasing the same feeling that you're wanting to now, it's not going to work out for you. Because if you build your life on people, people will let you down. I've seen firsthand the heartbreak that comes from people living with relationships as their number one thing in their life. I've sat with some of you in this room and shared in tears as you've described the pain and the hurt that have come from seeing relationships fall apart and relationships break down. As we look for a people to belong to, as we look for security in our friendships and our relationships, it's a bleak picture. What hope can there be in life? This is where I want to suggest that maybe Jesus has something to offer. I wonder if you noticed in the reading that we had, if you've got a Bible around you, I'd love for you to open it up. We're in the book of John chapter 4, and we're meeting someone who comes face to face with the person who knows her more than anyone else in the world. He sees what she's been chasing, and he still loves her. We meet this woman from Samaria. Now, Samaria is we're 2,000 years ago. Okay, here's Australia. I'm just going to visually do a timeline of the history of God's people. We're in Australia in the year 2000 and something, 2024. 2,000-ish years ago, Jesus came, lived, died, rose from the dead, and ascended to heaven and has changed history forever. Okay? We're going to come back to that in a second, so I'm not going to spoil it. A few thousand years before then, the Jewish people, a few people kind of like broke away and like intermingled with some other nations and things like that. So they're kind of like what in Harry Potter you'd call a mudblood. They're kind of like people that are sort of Jewish but sort of not, and the Jewish people look down on these guys. So this woman is a Samaritan woman. She's part of an outcast people. She is a woman, which 2,000 years ago, you can only imagine some of the ways that women could have been treated. She's at the well alone in the middle of the day with the sun beating down on her to draw water. She's obviously not welcome at the well when all the other people go and get their water in the morning or the afternoon when it's cool, because she has been outcast. She's an outcast from an outcast people group. She is an outcast as a woman, and she is an outcast socially. And despite this, Jesus goes up to her and he says in verse 7, "Will you give me a drink?" Will you give me a drink? She is shocked. She's absolutely baffled. A few verses later, you're a Jew and I'm a Samaritan woman? "How can you ask me for a drink?" she said. For Jews did not associate with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have actually asked him, and he would have given you living water." "Sir," the woman said, "you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water?" Now this is such a tense scene. They shouldn't even be speaking. There should be so much shame involved, even for Jesus to go up to her and approach her and have a conversation with her. But he doesn't mind. Jesus is happy to bear shame if it means being able to love someone and someone coming to know him. She's interested in the water that Jesus offers. I mean, who wouldn't be? Everyone who drinks regular water, like well water, everyone who drinks that will be thirsty again. But Jesus says that whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst again. That sounds too good to be true. Picture this. It's a 40-degree day, and you've woken up on your Saturday, and you're like, "Great, I've had such a long week. I can't wait to do absolutely nothing." And your dad comes in with like shears and gardening gloves and goes, "Guess what we're doing all day? We're going into the sun to dig up stuff and do weeding and stuff." I don't have a backyard. I don't really know what that's like. But we're going to go and we're going to do hard work in the backyard. The backyard for hours. And so hour after hour, you are digging, you are weeding, you are like dirty and filthy and sweaty. Your lips are cracked, and you just want to get the shovel, dig a huge hole, put your head in it, because then at least you will have escaped the sun. And then your mum comes out with a cool glass of water, the condensation just dripping, and the moment that hits your lips, best feeling ever. Now, I might have exaggerated a few details, but I reckon you can appreciate the moments where you are so thirsty and you have that first sip of water. But when you drink that water, it's so good at the time, and then you just have to keep drinking it because it's water and we're people and we need water to live. What Jesus is saying is that he can give water like this forever. And whoever comes to him will not need to drink the water ever again. Jesus is offering this metaphorical water that will truly satisfy our deepest desire. Metaphorical water that will truly satisfy our deepest need. I wonder if you saw the woman's response in verse 11. "Sir," the woman said, you have nothing to draw with. Like he doesn't have a bucket. You have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? She's once again, like we saw last week, kind of mistaken the identity of Jesus. She's seen Jesus and got a bit of a picture, but she's also missed the point a little bit. Last week, we thought about fairy godparent Jesus, who would come and fix the problems and then disappear. That's what his mum thought she was. This week, this woman sees Jesus as Amazon delivery guy Jesus. Hear me out. He comes and he gives the gift and then he leaves. But she's actually missed the point because he is the gift. Jesus is the one who will be able to satisfy her thirst. Back at the conversation between Jesus and this lady, all things seem to be going pretty well until all of a sudden Jesus says, "Go and get your husband." Seems like a bit of a weird shift. It seems like a really bit of a weird shift in this story. Have a look at verse 16. It'll be on the screen as well. "Go and get your husband and come back." She says, "I have no husband." Jesus said to her, "You are right when you say you have no husband. The fact is, you have had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have said is quite true." How does Jesus know this? She must be thinking. She's off guard. She tries to change the subject. Imagine being in her shoes when all of a sudden Jesus gives her an entire history of all of her relationships. Like, imagine going and sitting on the bus on the way to your school, and the random old guy that's always on the bus just turns and looks at you and tells you your deepest shame. You're like, how do you know that? Is Jesus just doing this as a party trick? I wonder why he might have done this. I don't actually have to, because the reality is that Jesus knows you. Jesus knew this woman, and Jesus knows you. He knows the things that she was searching for. Man after man after man, and none of them could fill the desire that was in her heart, the longing to be loved and to belong. The same longing that is in all of us. Jesus knows this woman's heart, and he knows yours. He recognizes what you are searching for, what you are longing for, what you are putting as the absolute number one thing in your life, which is so often just yourself. He sees this and he points this out so this woman will see it and come to know him. Because friends, if you've got the outline in front of you, the third point, Jesus is the fulfillment of the desire that we all have. For this woman, Jesus sees her greatest desire, and like I said, he kind of pokes a hole in it. He says, you've been chasing relationships, you've been chasing satisfaction. Where has it got you? It's gotten you to this well in the middle of the day with no friends. Can you imagine the shame and the dishonor that all of that relational breakdown would do to her? And this guy that she's just chatting to at the well knew everything. She tries to change the subject again. And she says this. She says, "I can see that you are a prophet." To which Jesus says, "You Samaritans, you worship what you do not know. We," that is Jesus, the Jewish people, "we worship what we do know. For salvation," that's like a fancy word for being saved. "Salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming and has now come when the true worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for they are the kind of worshippers the Father seeks." Jesus, the King of the universe, is offering this lady who has chased after so many relationships and is not yet fulfilled the opportunity to have a relationship that will satisfy her forever. The opportunity to relate not with people, but with God. To worship God, the God who knows her, who loves her, who created her, and who is the best thing for her. Jesus gives this woman an opportunity to have a relationship far more intimate and beautiful than any that she's sought after. With the God who created everything, with the Father who knows her and loves her so much, with the Father who sent his Son to come and take her place and die on her behalf, with the God who's going to send his Spirit so that she can have immediate access to him at all times. The woman says this, verse 25, "I know that Messiah, called Christ, is coming. And when he comes, he will explain everything to us. The Jewish people back then, and sort of still today, they missed the boat. The Jewish people back then had this idea that this person was coming called the Messiah, who would come and would save them, who would rescue them, who would fix all of the problems. The secret to her longing is tied up in this identity of this person called the Messiah. A Jewish figure, the one to save all the people, the teacher, to make things clear to God's people. And imagine the look on her face when she sees that the person that she's chatting with at the well is him. Look at this bombshell. Jesus declared, I, the one speaking to you, I am he. Jesus is the one who can bring peace. Jesus is the one who can satisfy. Jesus is the one that can bring relationship with God, the Lord of the universe. True eternal satisfaction doesn't come from dating someone or doesn't come from having a healthy relationship with your parents. While they may be good things, they're going to let us down eventually. Jesus will not. Jesus is the source of the eternal living water himself. He calls this Samaritan, this divorcee, this person who's filthy in the eyes of society. He calls the person who is rejected and gives her a place to be accepted. And the same offer is on the table for you. Jesus has the same offer on the table for you, you who are rejected and who are broken. See, he has worked through his life on earth, his death, his resurrection, so that you can have a true and beautiful relationship with God. He has worked so that you can love him. See, he knows the depths of your heart. He knows the things that the places you've been a little selfish. He knows the ways you've been rejecting him. He knows the ways you've tried to cover up the brokenness that is within you. The things that you think about at night when you think no one is looking. He sees that, and yet he loves you. Jesus truly knows you. And he still loves you. Like I mentioned before, with that relationship that I had when I was 15, I realized my own selfishness so clearly. I thought I was a pretty good guy, but I was chasing longing in relationships, in people who would let me down because I was a person just like them. I needed validation, I needed affection, I needed these things. It was so selfish. And I realized my selfishness was affecting my relationship with the way that I saw my family, the way that I maybe looked down on my sister or disrespected my parents. But first and foremost, my selfishness impacted the way that I saw God and related to him. This selfishness that I hazard a guess that you might as well, is what the Bible calls sin. Where we choose to put ourselves first. We kick God off the throne and we put ourselves first. See, I realized how much I actually hated God because I was putting myself first. I didn't respect him. I didn't care about him. And it was only realizing my own hatred for God that I realized God knew how much I hated him, and yet he still sent Jesus to die for me. God knew how ugly my sin was, and yet he still sent Jesus to die for me. He knows what a huge sinner you are, no matter how hard you try to cover it up. And he still sent Jesus to die for you. What God has said through the cross, what God has said through the death and resurrection of Jesus is to you, I know you, and yet I still love you. He doesn't ask, what value do you add? He knew the answer was a big fat zero. He knew the cost that it would be to show you love and to bring you in a relationship with himself. It was the precious blood of his one and only Son, and yet he did it anyway because he still loves you. It's a relationship he did that you don't have to work for. a relationship that is not going to fade away, a relationship that will satisfy forever. Jesus gives the living water that will last forever and satisfy forever. We can have every craving, every desire met. The yearning for belonging and acceptance that we all have is fulfilled in Him. Even if the relationships we have on earth are great, they're going to let us down. Friends, go to Jesus, who gives real life now and literally forever, who knows you and yet still loves you. Trust in Him. I'm going to pray and ask that God would help us do that. Please pray with me. Father, thank you that through Jesus you go to the outcast. Thank you that you see and know the depths of our heart and our sin and yet still love us. The relationship that we have with you because we are fully forgiven shows us we belong, we have life, and we are loved. Help us trust in Jesus and live for you. Amen.